have a recording, and a recording is a very good friend of mine, Lonnie Poindexter. Previously had a radio program that, and I think a TV talk program, dealing with our Christianity and the moral construct of our communities. He also used to host a content of character conference that he would host throughout the country, dealing with, it's not always about the color of your skin, but the content of our character and how do we begin to change the characteristics or implement the construct of a moral character and moral principles within our behaviors, and why behaviors are leading to, things that ill behaviors lead to a lack of moral construct. And so today, I just want us to listen to his video, and then we'll have an open discussion on what he shares with us today. Again, my name is Reverend Zachary James Oliver, and I am the Vice President of UPF. For those who don't know me and who are on here for the first time in our live stream, or those who are on today. Again, want to welcome you, and let's put on Lonnie Poindexter.
We see today. So people of faith in the faith-based community must be active. We must be politically active, not sitting on the sidelines with our bags packed waiting for Jesus to come back. We must be active in every facet of society, and we can right this ship until Christ's triumphant return. There's something I want to read because I was thinking about what you tasked me with, but what came to mind is what's taking place in the news, in particular, the incident that took place in Memphis, Tennessee, with a young man who interacted with police and lost his life. And I wrote some things down and I posted it in social media. I want to read it to you all here today, and then I'm going to comment on it, and then look forward to your response as well. Let me read this. Back in the 60s and 70s, I was taught by my dad how to successfully navigate interaction with law enforcement. Dad, who was born in the South, Mississippi to be specific, he called it critical thinking. My point being, Dad said, you don't know who is on the other side of that badge. Could be a good cop, or it could be a bad cop, or just a cop having a bad day. He said, you control that interaction, son, by what you say, how you act, and what you do. Dad said, you can't argue, mouth off, and tussle with anyone who has the legal right to shoot you if they deem it appropriate. And you certainly can't run or be intoxicated. You must comply, or you put yourself at extreme risk. Now, this is a Black man born in the South, speaking of my father, at a time in history where it was very difficult to walk the walk of life and of faith if you happen to have what I call the darker paint job. So he has unique wisdom based on his time in the South, and then his mother moving him to California, and then hence going down the road. My dad met my mom when he was of age. They got married. They're still married today, 69 years, and still with us. And he's 91 years old. My mom is 90. So he had a unique perspective. So he was instilling in me critical thinking. Let me read on. We don't yet fully know what and all that took place, so I am not accusing the young man. I also wonder about the 5 law enforcement officers involved and how they were raised by their dads, key point there, given the actions that they took. I'm just saying young Black men must use critical thinking when they deal with law enforcement, given our history of tension with law enforcement in this nation. Critical thinking. Let me read on. A truly sad outcome for this young man and his family. I am also truly sad to see the ambulance chasers like Sharpton and Crump, who are circling the emotional carnage like vultures looking for a payday, exploiting the tragic incident with their false narrative and the wokesters. I grew up in Los Angeles in the 60s and 70s, and I avoided or mitigated negative interactions with law enforcement largely because I applied the critical thinking taught to me by my dad. My dad was and is the bull elephant that kept me safe because he taught me well. And then my final point is, where are the bull elephants? So we think about crime and gun violence. What is the cause? And then therefore, what is the solution? I would submit the cause is the absence of a patriarchal environment of fathers being vested in and of their families and their children, and specifically male interaction with their sons, daughters as well for that matter, but I'm focusing on the sons today. What we're seeing in society is a breakdown of the traditional family. Dads just aren't home anymore like they used to be. Now, this is systemic across the population, but it's epic within the community of folks who look like us. It's epic. Over 70+% of Black households today are single parent, typically female head of household. Now, I've got nothing against moms. I had and have a great mother. She instilled wonderful things in me. But what kept me on the right path was the firm hand of a man who cared about me enough to make me do what was right, to make me get a perspective of what really matters and how to conduct myself in a way that I could not only survive living in this nation, but prosper in this nation. It was my dad. I speak of them often. Folks laugh at me, say, "You're really crazy about your dad." I say, "Yeah, I am. He's my hero." Back in grade school, we had to write a report. I believe it was in the 7th grade. I had to write a report about who is my hero. And, all the different individuals came to mind: Superman, Batman, sports greats, football, basketball, whatever. But the one person that kept ringing up in my spirit was my father. So that's what I wrote about. And so I see an absence of traditional fatherhood in the Black community today. And we're suffering because of it. When I think of this young man, and it's tragic what happened to him. They're in Memphis. I wonder, what was his relationship with his father? Was his father actively involved? Did his father teach him critical thinking to allow him to navigate the pitfalls that are out there, and become successful, not only to survive, but to become successful? I often think about the 5 law enforcement officers and their dealings with this young man. Was their fathers involved in their lives? You would see from some of the actions, and we don't know everything, and it's going to come out, all the details. We just see the video. What interactions did they have with their father? I would submit, given the data that's out there, 70+% of those 5 policemen probably did not have a dad actively involved in their life. But that's a topic for another show, another segment. So that's what came to mind for me, because here's what happens. Now, let's go to scripture. Give me a minute here to pull it up. Because scripture tells us a lot about the environment that we're in today. And here's something that I pulled up. Fatherhood was one of the first responsibilities God gave to men. Fatherhood was one of the first jobs God gave men. Immediately after creating Adam and Eve, God commanded them to be fruitful and multiply. One of his primary purposes for marriage was offspring who would fill the earth in God's praise and glory. However, providing, I'm going to stop there. Let me go to some of the bullet points. Here's some of the verses that came up. A father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. And that's Psalms 103:13. Here's Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline instructions of the Lord. Here's Proverbs 20:7. Well, let me read on. Let's go to Colossians. Colossians 3:21. Fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. And here's Proverbs 4:1-9. Hear, O sons, a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may gain insight, for I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments, and live. Get wisdom and get insight. Do not forget, and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. There's several others, but I'm just making a point here. I think you all get what I'm saying. The importance of fathers. We exist today in a society, and in my opinion, a government apparatus that has taken the authority and place that men have traditionally had out of the family. And I think we're suffering because of it. The solution to this is very simple. Put patriarchy back where it needs to be, where men can truly fulfill all that God has called them to do. We will repair our society when men stand up. There's a group of men in Chicago, and the name of them escapes me. I think they were just dads that got together, nothing formal. But you know about the number of incidents that take place in Chicago with gun warfare, or warfare with guns. And it's just, I think it was like 700 murders last year, something like that. It's a ridiculous number. So a group of men there in inner city Chicago, South Side, had enough because of all the foolishness that was taking place. And the foolishness basically is just unsupervised bands or gangs of unsupervised male youth running amok. And so these men, these are dads, military veterans, blue collar workers, professionals across the whole gamut, who got together and decided to patrol the streets in and around the school where their children attended. You want to know what happened? The gang violence ceased because a handful of men stood up and said enough is enough, and were allowed to do so. There's a pastor, Corey Brooks, in the South Side of Chicago, who has been beating the drum for this type of activity by men to stand up. And he was just awarded a multi-million-dollar grant for his Project Hood, which is part of his organization that he's using to reinstill values that are near and dear. And quite frankly, is what allowed us who happen to have the darker paint job to not only survive slavery and second-class citizenship and Jim Crow, but prosper in spite of. And that was the men standing up. So I don't want to go too much longer, given so much time, but that's how I see where we are today and what we need. It's very simple. It's not going to be government that's going to solve this problem. In fact, they exacerbate the problem. I'll just mention this. Government in the mid-1960s, at the implementation of the entitlement programs, voting rights and so forth, instilled the welfare programs that ended up hamstringing the Black community. Second thing that took place was in 1973 with abortion, but that's a topic for another show. So it's very simple. It's got to come from us, and it has to emanate from the church. So those are my final comments. Any questions or feedback that you have for me, I welcome.
Thank you very much. I think very short, very powerful, and quite warm as well to listen to those particular comments that he made. I just want to first, before I say anything, make any kind of comment myself. If anyone wants to make some comments on what they heard, ask some questions, or the floor is open. Hey.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed his presentation this morning. He's right about government not being able to change the problem. Government cannot legislate conscience or heart into existence. It has to come from within. There has to be a tradition to do it, and the right people to speak that message over and over again until it becomes a way of life. And he's on the right track. I did find that there's one thing that was missing in it, and when we go back generation after generation, we'll come to the first family. The first family did not do well. There was murder in the first family, and that was the consequences of leaving God. And so he went up to that point, but didn't bring it in. But I think he's totally in the right line, and the fruits of what he did with these other men in Chicago patrolling the school speaks a lot.
True. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wayne. How about you, Bruce? Welcome. Dr.
Yeah,
Suche.
thank you very much. What a great presentation, short and to the point. I wish more people follow your example. I was a school teacher in Englewood, at Englewood High School, right after college, when they were trying to get all the schools integrated. And I had 30 students in my class. One student had both birth parents at home. And, I don't know how to change that situation. When you talked about how all these men got together. I was inspired. I wondered how many of those men were fathers of the children that were getting in trouble. I guess it's probably none of them. I would just end by saying, you might have read recently in the Tribune, African-American professor named Eddie Cornegay wrote an editorial in the Tribune and said very simply, he was hired by the Illinois Policy Institute to deal with poverty. But in his article, he said, if you want to understand street gang violence, then you got to focus on having two-parent families. Again, thank you for a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. It's true. Anyone else? Share.
I'll try to contribute something there if you want.
Oh yeah. Hey, John.
Good to see you.
Yeah, same
Well,
here.
yeah, it's a beautiful pattern. He learned from his father, and then he wants to take that out to the public, and that's a wonderful thing, because many times we don't multiply the good things we learn in life, and we understand about it. But in our society, almost like today, people would rebel against the patriarchy family. They say we're turning back the clock of time, like going back to time when some men were, running the show and women were in the background and all that. But so he needs to really, flesh out the kind of man that he wants to be, head of the family. What kind of man is that going to be? What is his attitude, of course, toward women, and the same way, when sometimes young men will see the dad beat the father, beat the wife, and they'll do the same thing. I think that's a normal part of life, and those, of course, have to break that cycle of behavior. So, but he mentioned Cory Booker. Do we have him on? I can't remember if we had him on one time or not. No, never had him. Okay, so that's would be wonderful. He had, I guess, a project called Hood, and of course dealing with the neighborhood gangs and so forth. So yeah, it's very powerful stuff. He's a wonderful man, and hope we can work with him and have something to contribute for the future. Trying to think, what was that? What was the country recently that the guy cleaned up all the gangs and violence, and just like overnight down in Central America? But it was amazing how he just in a short time, went from the most murderous and deadly capital or city or state of the world to the least amount. So I think something to be learned about what he did. Of course, he had, as a president, he had a lot of power. To probably, rule the roost and do things that probably weren't very constitutional, I suppose, with with gangs and their rights. As far as legal rights and all that. But anyway, that's another thing. Think about that a little bit later. But yeah, I mentioned two things about, the 1960s, entitlement programs. He understood that, and that took away the father's position and power and president of the family. And of course, 1973 with the abortion issue. So yeah, he's right on target on many issues. I'm sure a good man for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John. It's true. Yeah, thank you. I like a statement that he did make. He said the lack of the fathers in a home and taking certain reign over the family,
Right.
just the whole image of a man in the house makes a difference. And I think that's what he was trying to relay to us.
Mhm.
And he used two words, and I like the way he used it. He says, so it's not just with black people, whatever. He says, that is systemic across the board,
Mhm.
and I think you kind of alluded to this, now we have this human rights, or this women's rights, or, man is now targeted as being, the dominant factor and not respecting women. And so therefore we don't like the patriarch factor in our home because of that. It's kind of twisted. It gets twisted.
Right.
It's like a,
Mhm.
a what they call it. I always say is a spider web. There is a demarcating line, but it's
Mhm.
so fine you can't hardly see it.
Yeah.
And so, but he said it's systemic across the board with America, but it's epidemic within the Black
Mhm.
community. And
Yeah.
then he gave reason why it's more epidemic. I think it's systemic based on what Wayne said. We are
Mhm.
fighting the principalities that have that has entered human society through the fall, you
Mhm.
know, and
Right.
from that perspective. So I really like that there, it reminds me, and we've all heard the story, but just that story about those bad little um, elephants in India. They kept coming in and destroying,
Mhm.
villages, and people didn't know
Yeah.
what to
Yeah.
do. And finally, they realized that the reason why was because the male bulls, had been shot and killed for their tusks, and so they were not in what is it, the not tribe, but the whatever you would call it.
Heard.
Yeah, the herd. Yeah, they weren't in the herd. And so when they discovered maybe that was the problem, they got some bulls and put them in a herd. The problem ceased.
Mhm. Mhm. Right. That's
Those
learning from
bulls,
nature, right? Learning from nature.
yeah, the bulls kept
Great.
those little teenagers in, in check, and fathers can do that as well. So
Mhm.
that story reminded me of that story which is also a true story as well. Anybody, this floor is open. Leslie, let's hear from a woman. I haven't seen Leslie in a while. Welcome to the platform.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I came in a little bit late, so I missed hearing Lonnie, and I wanted to hear him because I know I had met him a few years ago with the Owens. Yeah, yeah, it's a difficult thing because, you know, our society is really mixed up. Um, many times a man is put out of the house because he doesn't know how to handle his anger, and the wife can't take it. Um, and then the psychologists are encouraging it's better to have the father out of the house if he's got an anger problem because he's going to affect the children. So it's so even the whole issue of domestic violence, which is quite a big problem in our society, is treated, we'll just get rid of the man. Well, maybe family therapy would have worked better. Maybe there was something the woman was doing that was irritating the man that she could mitigate. So there's a lot of there's a lot of reason to save the family, and I think that we've been very one-sided about it, pointing fingers, pointing blame. It's his problem, it's her problem, rather than saying, well, it's all of our problems. We all come from the fall, and let's see what we can do here. And um, and the children have a role to play too. If they insist on their own way and becoming irritating, that can put a lot of stress on the parents. So I think that how can we help families really really care for each other? And I'm thinking of Karen Rice's, find agreement, find a way to find agreement in the family. And you know, why are the men running away? Is it just aid to dependent children, or is it something else? So I think it needs to be looked at and as a whole picture rather than a myopic picture. And um, yeah, we need fathers. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I think as we look at the whole picture, then I think we can have a little bit more appreciation for the dysfunction in the other myopic, because I like what he said. It's systemic across the board. That
Right.
means it's cross race,
Mhm.
because of the fall, but it's become epidemic in certain neighborhoods, right? But one of the things I like, he asked the question and he said, well, I wonder how many of those police officers who I just on assumption probably were white Americans, how many of them had a father in their house or influential dad in their house. And he said, I suspect maybe, I think he said about 75% maybe didn't, you know. And I thought about that as well. I thought that was a very powerful statement because if so, then what was that father teaching him? Also, on the flip side, if so, then if not, then there was a certain moral construct of the dad to implement within his son's mind and spirit that no matter what, you have to have a certain attitude or certain behaviors or whatever. So I just like the way he asked that question, because that went to me across the board of the systemic nature of no dad being in present and in the homes that transcend whether you're black, you're white, or whatever. And as we know, and we can hopefully say in this particular segment of the program, and he did start it, as Wayne said, but someone else said that he did share that there is a root, even a root of important, even from the biblical text. And he started with the fall, or what happened in the beginning, but he didn't elaborate a little bit more on it. And as we know, it does stem from this dysfunction. The first brothers killed each other, for sure. That was a big dysfunction. Two boys killed each other and been killing each other ever since. So, yeah, so I want to thank you very much for that. Your point, and your point was taken. Anyone else like to share? Up for discussion. Who's there? I know that she disappeared. Kennedy. Do you have something to say, share with us?
Did you lower your hand, Bill, or you're okay?
Oh, Bill.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't see
think
that.
Bill had his
Bill, you
hand.
had your hand? Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yes, I did, but I'd be glad to let Olga go first. No problem.
Oh, Bill, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate this program because I'd never seen Mr. Poindexter before, and he's an excellent speaker, and I'm grateful that we're working with him because I like how he summarized it into the aspect of content of character. Yeah, I'm really concerned about how the direction of our nation is really becoming of lesser value and almost destructive because we're not seeking for that goodness. There used to be an innate, like unwritten practice that every family, every person, every community was always seeking to find out how they could use their gifts, talents, and abilities for the greater good. That unwritten description about the greater good, everybody tried to contribute toward it. But now I feel that there's too much of an insistence or a focus on selfishness and on concept of self. Yeah, some parents, even single dads, may be trying to instill in their sons taking care of their economic needs and their families if they have create families, but above and beyond just the immediate physical surrounding, there needs to be the installation of absolute values. And I'm grateful for Mr. Poindexter's reference to scriptural texts and also Wayne's description about the original fall. That we need to educate people that the problem's been around for way too long, but now let's use the blessing of the different religions that we have, the different faith texts and doctrines, to guide us to connect more deeply or more strongly to the original source, our Heavenly Parent. And I'd really like to see America find some way of creating I don't know if you want to call it a cultural revolution, but just an installation, a momentum of searching for those higher values at the local level. It concerns me that in the demographics of America and a lot of advanced nations, the numbers are the new births are being restricted so much, are in such a low number that it may be as a result that young people don't really have a desire. They don't feel confident. They're not inspired to want to take on the responsibility of bringing children into the world, creating families, and having that kind of responsibility. And so I think to the extent that fathers can get more involved in raising their children, both sons and daughters, hopefully we can have a different cultural viewpoint, a cultural investment into the future of our nation by practicing ultimate values and just teaching youngsters how to bring out their best, how to contribute toward the greater good. That's my desire.
Amen.
Very well said. Thank you so much. Yeah. I just remembered something that Father Moon used to always say in the early days. There needs to be a revolution, but it's a revolution of heart, right? While you were speaking, that came to mind. That's exactly what it needs, and we need to. You kind of describe what that means. A revolution of the heart. Because, as you had said, the new norm is selfishness. So therefore, that which is, the seed, what God breathed the breath of life into us, it's being completely, muffled and suffocated, because the new norm is saying, let's be, the new norm of selfishness. So therefore, the revolution of heart, it's hard to penetrate that. It's not fashionable. But if we do and bring people to a new consciousness, then that which is our original nature, and everyone has original nature, can come out and be the vehicle for true change. But we have to do that. Olga.
Oh,
Welcome.
yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Bill.
you. It's good to be here today and to hear the speaker. It's always interesting to hear a different perspective. I thought it was interesting when he said it was just a few men that got together and made a difference. And that's really inspiring to me. It doesn't have to be some big, huge organization, but just a few men who really care and can make such a difference. Is like he said, the violence. It's very inspiring to me that that's the case. It kind of makes me feel like I need to go into action. Like where can I make a difference? And not feel like, well, it's just one of us or three of us, and we can't really do anything. So that was really inspiring. And the other thing is, I really agree about the difference that it makes when you have a father and a husband in the house. I'm a widow of 16 years. And I remember when my husband passed on, and my youngest daughter was just about 16. And my husband had no longer been taken from our home, that she started crying and said, "Mom, I need to get a big dog. I need to get like a Doberman Pinscher." I'm not making this up. She actually said this very seriously. And she goes, I said, "Well, why are you saying this right now?" They had literally just carried my husband out of the house. It was quite a poignant moment. And she's thinking about getting a dog. And I said, "Well, why are you thinking about that?" She goes, "Mom, I don't have a protector anymore. Dad's gone." And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe how profoundly she's feeling this right now. Like her father's being carried out and she feels so insecure. And then she said, Mom, I need to find a job tomorrow. I need to go out and look for a job. I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, yeah, Mom, because Dad's gone. I said, we're going to be fine. Please don't worry about that. And she was just sobbing and she felt so highly insecure. And that was just the obvious. That was just the obvious. That wasn't even the deeper, subtle. She went through a lot, for the next 10 years. I won't get into that now, but that's a profound effect that a father's presence has in a home. And so these people that grow up with no parents or just one parent, many times just the mother, they feel those things, those insecurities, those fears, that God intended there to be a male and a female, a father and a mother. And they're very different. I remember, I won't want to mention his name, but, he had 5 sons, a wonderful wife, and his oldest son was a teenager and the youngest was about 10. And when his wife died, the whole household fell apart because she was the glue. She was the emotional glue. She was very, motherly, feminine. The dad was very present, but very different role. And they were never the same. It was very sad. So yeah, you really do need both. I suppose there's some ways that society could try to move in and help the best we can in those situations where there's no moms or no dads. And that's what helped me today too, was when it was said that even a few people can make a difference in so many ways. But yeah, I know I myself felt a deep loss at the no father, no husband present in the home. So God bless these precious people that are in that situation, Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well said. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I knew I had to call you. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, who made some comment. I like just to share that I grew up in a 2-parent home, and both my mom and dad played a very indelible role in my life. And so I can concur with him. And my dad was my hero as well. And growing up in the certain communities, it wasn't quote unquote, popular, if you will. But I can tell you, as his dad shared with him, there are some things that I was 5 years old, my dad shared something with me about having a certain thinking process about the world around me, who I was, who I am, and who I should be. And I was 5 years old. I never forget. I was 5 years old on a summer day in New York City. And he looked down at me, and I can always remember looking up. And he said he wanted me to know certain things as I grow up. And I tell you, the power of a father is unmistaken, and you can't replace it as the power of a mom as well when she speaks to her children, but also power of a dad. And what he said to me, for some reason, I remember the word verbatim to this day, and I was 5 years old. And it had everything to do with me and my life and what I would face in life. But what attitude I should have when I'm faced with those obstacles, and the conclusion was you have to have a higher mind. You have to have a higher heart and a better attitude, because they don't know any better. But you'll be the better man if you knew better. And that was his last words. You will be the better man because you know better. And never forget that. So again, that's how important and how powerful a father's words are to his children and especially to his sons. You know, so I concur. I don't want to go through the whole story, but I believe he was my hero too. I loved him. He was great, wonderful, wonderful man, a man of great integrity, and also he would before he disciplined me, he would discuss with me why he's disciplining. Made it worse because then I'm shaking in my boots, right? Why are you taking so long? But he would also discuss with me, this is why I'm disciplining you, because A, B, C, D. And we had to have those discussions. So that makes a difference, especially in a boy's life. And that is missing in a lot of males today, transcending of race, but and also in the lives of a lot of especially Black people of color. Anyone else?
I have one comment I'd like to make, Reverend Zachary.
Yes.
When you had spoken that selfishness is now the new norm, it is very true. There was an author in the 1950s who was very influential here in America, and that author was Ayn Rand. And she wrote The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, and she also wrote The Virtue of Selfishness. And in her writings, she goes at length promoting selfishness. And I was influenced by her writing until I went to a newsstand one day, and it was either Newsweek or Time Magazine or Life, but they had a magazine that was Black and in red lettering said, "Is Satanism a religion?" And it really caught my eye, and I didn't know anything about it, and I liked reading, and I picked it up. And the code of conduct of Satanism was word for word, not an exaggeration, word for word, the ethics of Ayn Rand and the virtue of selfishness. You exist for yourself. You exist for your own happiness. There is no greater responsibility than my own happiness. My own thinking is what is my truth. All of these things. And when I read that, I stopped immediately, believing and trying to practice that. There's many ways that selfishness has been made a norm, but I wanted to just bring that up as part of the conversation.
Pertinent, and I think, as Bill was saying, there is a concerted effort to confuse norms. And I remember when I was in college, again, certain things stick with you. And I was in a psychology course, and it was just Psych 101. So I was just learning about certain things. And one of the definitions, I don't know why, this just struck me like a bolt of lightning. And so what's the definition of norm? And it was very simple. The definition of a norm is what's prevailing. That doesn't make any sense. What do you mean? If evil is prevailing, then that becomes norm, right? So therefore, we have a concerted effort out there to make selfishness the norm, you see. And so I thank you for your remarks, Wayne. Hello? Can you hear me? Because I froze. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it's true, and you can see what's going on in our society today. Even
froze again.
I froze again. I think it's my computer. Hold on, just 1 second. Share with me. Sorry, my computer might die on me. I'm looking for my cord. I forgot to put it. So if I die, God bless you. Thank you so much for coming on. You know, but anyway, I think we're at the end. We have 6 more minutes. If anyone does not have anything else to say, I think we can conclude there. Hold on just a second. My daughter is trying to help daddy, you know. But if not, I want to thank everyone for coming on. I love the discussion today. Everyone shared something I think was pertinent, and I have to send this video to our brother who came, Lonnie Poindexter. Actually, he also was a guest in Korea. He went to one of our Korean programs, and he's really a very powerful man. I plugged it up so we can, if anybody can have we have like 5 more minutes. The floor is still open if anybody wants to make some last comments.
What's the comment from Tar Heel, North Carolina?
Yeah, okay.
I apologize, but I just got on, so I'm just listening and learning. But what a great topic, the importance of fathers and the importance of the family. And Universal Peace Federation puts on Parents' Day every year. So I really love what we do, because when it's all done, and the most important thing is the family and our children, brothers and sisters. We learn everything in our family, everything through our family and through, the relationships of mom and dad and brothers and sisters. And if we could just do that
Right.
well, I think we'll have a
Yeah.
great society.
Amen.
Thank you, Zachary. Thank you, everybody, for your comments.
Yeah.
How about John
Thank
Healy?
you. You took the words right out of my mouth. Who said that? That was you, John. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just getting ready to call him. John Healy.
Yeah. It's focused on the family is obviously the core of society, but we are surrounded by so many influences, especially through the multimedias, et cetera, and that's where all this selfishness is being reinforced constantly. And it's really a struggle. This is really I will use the phrase last days. I mean, this is good and evil head to head, and we really have to be serious about, especially our families. At least we have to save our families. We can't save anybody else, and it's very difficult. I have a 16-year-old boy at home, and he spends more time with the phone than he does with me, you see. And it's a little tricky to, keep in contact. Luckily, his mother is very good, and he loves her very much. And but more and more, I'm really trying to make extra effort to spend time with him and, give him the insight and wisdom that I've acquired in my life, which is quite a bit, actually. And I hope and pray that we can really take advantage of that step by step. He's still only 16, it's hard, what is important to a 16-year-old is different than an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old. As time goes by in the next 4 years, it's going to be, good. I think it's all good, but, anyway, I just wanted to mention that external influences are really a powerful force in the world.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much. Everyone, we're coming to the close. I want to thank everyone. A great group of people here. Enjoyed you, and we're making history. These recordings will go down in history, and next generation will listen to the wisdom that came out of your mouth. And I think that it seems like, I like just conclude with this. When I was the pastor the Washington D.C. church, I used to always say, Satan is a liar, Satan is a thief, and he's a master intimidator. His job is to make you think that everything, what he is doing, evil is prevailing, and there's nothing you can do about it. But we who are on this call know that it's a lie. It's a lie, because goodness will eventually prevail. And so people like you guys, people like Lonnie, will keep speaking out, throwing in the ethos, then God will win. Goodness will prevail. God bless you and thank you. And I look forward to seeing everyone.
Thank
The
you.
Lord is with you. The Lord is with you.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Happy Juneteenth.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Gee, that's great. My gosh.
All right. God bless.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Reverend Oliver.
Take care.
Thank
See
you,
next
Leslie.
week.
That would be
Yeah,
with
thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you, Olga, for sharing.
Thank
That
you.
is
God
all.
bless you.
Good sharing. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
God
Bye.
bless.
See you later.